Arjun trusted Ethan. Priya saw the red flags. Karen knew the streets. Maya pulled the strings. Someone ended up dead. Arjun lands in Toronto with a duffel full of ambition, a pair of knockoff sneakers, and a scholarship letter that feels like a golden ticket to the life he's been grinding toward since he first touched a keyboard back in India. The airport lights reflecting off his glasses like a preview of everything shiny and new waiting ahead. And he breathes in the cold Canadian air with a mix of nerves and adrenaline while campus life hits him fast with bustling hallways, late-night pizza smells, and classmates talking about internships like they already own the future. And soon he meets Ethan through a dating app where smiley selfies and smooth bio lines pull him in. A guy who claims he studies finance and lives in a polished apartment that looks straight out of a modern condo commercial, offering comfort and attention in a city where Arjun still feels like a tourist in his own dreams. And suddenly he finds himself swept into fast dates, laughter over instant noodles, and promises whispered through texts that make his chest feel less heavy. While Priya, his closest friend from back home studying nursing in the same city, watches with cautious eyes, warning him not to lose himself in someone else's idea of love. And their roommate, Karan, street smart with a hustler vibe, shrugs off the concern because to him being in Canada means playing whatever game gets you ahead. But Arjun doesn't see any game at all, only the possibility of building a real future faster and easier than he ever imagined. And every moment with Ethan feels like proof that he finally belongs here, finally winning, finally stepping out of the long shadow of doubt he carried across the ocean. So he ignores every tiny red flag waving in the background, believing luck has finally chosen him as its favorite. The wedding happens faster than Arjun can process. A simple courthouse setup with sterile walls and formal smiles. Documents passed back and forth like they're just another assignment due before midnight, and in that moment it feels harmless, like he's securing his spot in the country and sealing a future with someone who makes loneliness disappear. But as soon as the signatures dry, small cracks start forming in the shiny story he's been telling himself. Because Ethan's job details shift depending on who's asking. Sometimes he's a financial analyst. Sometimes he's working on a startup that never shows up on Google. And the joint bank account they plan together becomes a weird guessing game where money disappears faster than it appears, leaving Arjun wondering if he misunderstood the terms of this new life. And then there's the lease. Arjun notices a signature that isn't Ethan's, a name scratched in expensive ink that screams a history he was never told about, while Priya, always the practical one, digs around and discovers a receipt for a diamond ring purchased under a different card with yet another name attached. And every time Arjun asks Ethan about these slips, the answers come polished and confident enough to make him doubt his own instincts. Like maybe he's just being paranoid or overthinking because of a lifetime of worrying about worst-case scenarios. But deep down, the unease grows like mold in a dark corner. And Karen, who has been around enough hustles to recognize one, starts snooping through Ethan's digital shadows and uncovers a secondary email account tied to half-finished dating profiles, immigration forums, and messages that look like negotiations rather than conversations. Yet somehow Arjun still clings to hope, desperate for everything to make sense, desperate for the love he thought he'd found not to turn into another reminder that the world doesn't hand out good things without a price. But the more papers he flips through and inconsistencies he catches, the more he feels trapped by the very marriage that was supposed to set him free. And that gut feeling that once whispered is now screaming that he might be lying next to someone who only sees him as a stepping stone. One late night, drowning in caffeine and panic, Arjun's shaky fingers scroll through the trails of messages and files Ethan accidentally left open. And suddenly he unlocks a hidden photo album stored under a username he's never seen before. A secret world of provocative pictures and cryptic captions that feel like a slap across the face. Each click digging deeper into a life Ethan never bothered to reveal. And his heart hammers against his ribs as screenshots and usernames start connecting to that second email account Karan found, revealing chat logs with strangers discussing money, arrangements, and promises that sound like deals rather than affection. And as Arjun keeps revealing more, the truth grows uglier. like Ethan had been involved with multiple people who had no idea about each other. And the biggest blow comes when he stumbles upon a casual line in a message thread where Ethan bragged about being tested and totally clean, those two words suddenly twisting into something sinister. When Arjun realizes he never saw any actual proof, that he just trusted the person sharing his bed, and panic morphs into desperation as he digs through his own medical records and sees no recent tests, meaning he has no clue what risks he's been exposed to, and betrayal becomes a physical thing squeezing his lungs, while memories of every kiss and every night together now feel contaminated with lies. And Priya tries to pull him out of the mental freefall, but her voice sounds miles away, while Karan stokes the anger by pointing out how perfectly rehearsed Ethan's lies always were, like he's done this scam before and Arjun was just the next naive kid in line. And the weight of humiliation mixes with fear as Arjun gets tested, pacing the floor for days until the results hit like a wrecking ball, confirming he's positive and shattering every dream he brought across the ocean, leaving him with raw rage and a cold, calculated idea forming in the back of his mind. A dangerous whisper telling him that the person who destroyed his life needs to feel every ounce of this pain back, no matter what it takes. Arjun wakes up each day with anger pulsing like electricity in his veins, refusing to collapse into the victim role Ethan's betrayal tried to script for him. So he decides revenge won't come loud with screaming or chaos, but quiet, smart, and strategic, starting with pulling away emotionally until Ethan barely notices his presence, like a ghost haunting his own apartment, while Arjun secretly learns every password, every bank trail, and every shady connection Ethan tried to bury, piecing together a master list of leverage that could destroy Ethan's carefully curated Canadian fairy tale. And when the test results confirm Arjun is HIV positive, the heartbreak burns into something darker, a resolve that he's not going down alone. So he begins small by sending encrypted screenshots of Ethan's secret files to select classmates and mutual acquaintances, planting seeds of doubt in Ethan's social circle, seeds that sprout fast into gossip, distrust, and sideways glances that Ethan can't explain away. And then Arjun escalates by anonymously reporting Ethan's fake credentials to immigration, along with his hidden income streams that were never declared, forcing officers to pull Ethan into interviews and demand paperwork he no longer has, while Priya watches in horror, begging Arjun to stop before he becomes the monster he's fighting. But Karan eggs him on, bragging that snakes deserve to get skinned, and Arjun can't shake how satisfying it feels to watch Ethan's perfect life crumble piece by piece. Yet beneath every victory sits a hollow pit inside his chest, reminding him that no amount of chaos will cure his diagnosis or bring back the innocence he lost. Though that doesn't stop him from pushing further, creating burner accounts to expose Ethan's dating profiles to everyone who once respected him, dragging his reputation through digital mud and lighting matches under every bridge he ever built. And with each strategic strike, Arjun convinces himself that justice isn't always served in courtrooms or under the law. Sometimes it's served by the hands of the one who was wronged, even if revenge is turning him into someone he barely recognizes anymore. The night everything flips from revenge to tragedy arrives without warning, silent and ice-cold when Ethan doesn't text or come home, leaving the apartment eerily still while Arjun paces the living room, trying to rehearse what he'll say when Ethan finally cracks and admits the truth. But instead, a neighbor's frantic phone call shatters the tension, and police flood the building like ghosts with flashing lights, revealing Ethan's body sprawled on the cold tile floor inside his own apartment across town, lifeless in a way that doesn't match any of the revenge scenarios Arjun ever imagined, a broken vase nearby glittering with sharp edges, a spilled bottle of pills rolling in lazy circles like it's mocking everyone in the room, and no one can figure out if the chaos suggests a struggle or a last-minute panic gone wrong, while officers swarm around documenting every detail and marking evidence with little yellow tents that look surreal against such a personal scene, and Arjun tries to act confused, like a heartbroken spouse ripped apart by sudden loss, even though inside he's choking on fear that his digital traps and emotional sabotage might somehow be traced back to him. And Priya rushes to his side, her hands shaking as she tries to support him while also scanning every officer's expression, silently calculating whether they already suspect him. while Karan disappears for hours and returns with a sweaty, restless look in his eyes that suggests he knows more than he will admit. And the whispers start traveling faster than any official report. Friends questioning the timing, neighbors hinting they heard someone leave earlier, officers asking pointed questions about the state of the marriage, twisting suspicion into a narrative that seems too convenient to ignore, and Arjun realizes that in a city obsessed with neat explanations, the grieving husband who has motive, opportunity, and fresh bitterness tattooed across his past weeks becomes the prime target almost automatically, leaving him drowning in the terrifying thought that he may have set a chain reaction in motion that someone else finished with blood instead of rumors. And now he's trapped in a story he can't outrun or rewrite. Detective Lawson takes the case with a calm, old-school intensity, the type of guy who doesn't buy the first story he's handed. And while everyone else rushes to label Arjun the obvious culprit, Lawson digs deeper into Ethan's final days, pulling surveillance footage from street corners and tracing suspicious bank withdrawals that don't match a grieving spouse's behavior, but instead point toward a hidden chaos in Ethan's life. And soon forensics comes back with a curveball. The partial fingerprints on the broken vase don't belong to Arjun at all, but to Karan. A discovery that slams the investigation into a new direction, forcing Arjun to confront the terrifying possibility that the one person cheering on his revenge might have taken things way too far. But when Karan is questioned, he spins a bizarre account about trying to protect Arjun from someone far worse, which leads Lawson to comb through Ethan's bank statements again, revealing money quietly siphoned off and wired to a sketchy offshore foundation connected to a woman named Maya, a name Arjun barely recognizes from a blurry memory at a party where Ethan acted way too familiar with her, and the more Lawson unravels, the more he suspects Ethan wasn't just a scammer of hearts, but knee-deep in financial schemes that stretched beyond immigration fraud, possibly blackmailing wealthy men he met online and using Arjun's marriage as a perfect legal shield, while Maya appears as the kind of ghost who leaves fingerprints only on money and threats but nowhere else. And suddenly, the detective realizes that Arjun's revenge might have only exposed Ethan enough for his real enemies to make their move, turning the murder into a consequence of Ethan's own dangerous games rather than a crime of passion. Yet Arjun remains tangled in the narrative as the one with the clearest motive, becoming a pawn in a puzzle that still misses its most dangerous piece. And as media headlines twist the story into a sensational scandal about love, lies, and disease, Arjun watches the world decide his guilt before any court can, feeling his life slip through his fingers while the real killer, maybe Karan, maybe Maya, maybe someone nobody saw coming, stays out there free, protected by the perfect timing of chaos. The courtroom becomes a stage where Arjun's entire life is dissected under fluorescent lights, lawyers twisting his trauma into motive as prosecutors paint him as a vengeful immigrant who let anger and sickness turn into murder while the defense claws back, insisting everything linking him to Ethan's death is circumstantial and born from heartbreak. But the jury stares at him like he's a monster they already convicted in their minds. And the media chews up every headline about the HIV husband like it's entertainment, spreading speculation faster than the truth can breathe, turning his diagnosis into a weapon used against him instead of a reminder of how deeply he was wronged, while Priya sits every day in the front row, exhausted but loyal, whispering hope with her eyes because her voice doesn't matter in a courtroom that wants shock value over justice. And Karan eventually cracks under pressure, not with a confession to murder, but an emotional collapse that exposes a horrifying truth. He had been secretly paying Maya with the money skimmed from Ethan, trying to erase debts tied to a dangerous network that had dirt on Ethan long before Arjun ever boarded a plane to Canada, and when Maya suddenly disappears without a trace, leaving only a trail of faked addresses and burner phones. Even Detective Lawson starts to realize this case isn't about romance gone deadly, but criminal strings pulled by people powerful enough to vanish when things go messy. Yet with no concrete proof and too many missing pieces, the legal system decides to settle for less, offering plea deals to wrap the story cleanly, letting Karan shoulder financial fraud charges while Ethan's murder becomes a file stamped, unsolved, and Arjun walks out technically free but nothing, like the hopeful guy who once believed love could anchor him in a foreign world. Now carrying a lifelong diagnosis, a destroyed reputation, and a future blurred by fear rather than excitement. While Lawson retires still replaying unanswered questions, Priya buries herself in community work to stop others from falling into traps like this. And Arjun boards a quiet flight home, staring out the window at the clouds, swallowing the skyline. Knowing revenge didn't bring justice, only shadows he'll never stop running from.